Alrighty, everybody. We are back with Green Driving and Thriving, the Go Green Driving School podcast.
Episode 2, September 3rd, 2024. I figured we should time date these a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, we should probably keep a record of that.
Absolutely.
I hope everyone had a nice, safe Labor Day weekend. I know I did.
I did too, man. I definitely enjoyed some barbecue and kind of some downtime, caught up on some chores. It was a good weekend.
No, good. I actually went out to Santa Cruz on Sunday, and let me tell you, that brings us right into our first topic of the day is distracted driving and rubbernecking.
Painful.
Yeah. It's a constant fight to not look at what's going on the side of the road. But you add in like the holiday drivers to that, and it just becomes it's someone getting a ticket becomes a absolute nightmare.
There's just nowhere to pull over, especially on a highway like 17. You're in the mountains. I mean, there's literally no shoulder.
Yeah, it's like, but once some person stops and like slows down to look at who's getting the ticket, what they did, what kind of car they have, oh, is it a wreck, is it not a wreck, it could be completely off the road and you're still in 40 minutes of extra traffic because somebody is,
has to get their look.
Yeah.
I think it's a very strange, like a feeling of almost of empowerment or entitlement, excuse me. I've been waiting, my 20, 30 minutes to get to this point. I'm going to get my look too, right? And everybody feels the same way, so everybody gets their glance, and then pretty soon, it's so frustrating, so frustrating.
Yeah, it's just the nightmare scenario. Like you're already experiencing more people on that road because of the holiday weekend, and then one minor thing can set off a catastrophe that blocks you out all the way to like Scotts Valley or even San Jose in some cases. Luckily we weren't, we left early about like 9 in the morning. Yeah. and by 10 when we got there it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I know you were talking to one of our employees about how they were driving in from Antioch this morning.
Yep, and on the way back, they actually drove out and back this morning to run an errand, and they ran into a situation where there was a minor fender bender, and in hindsight, as the employee drove by, both cars were pulled off to the side, damage wasn't that bad, there weren't bodies on the ground, but everybody was slowing down to take a look, and the employee felt outraged as they drove by, just thinking like, why are we all slowing down? Why are we all participating in this delay? And it's just one of those things. We've all been there, and it's just one of those things you could just wish you could just with the magic wand, ring, and just eliminate, right? Like you can stop doing that.
Yeah, it's got to be a part of human nature, to like
curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Like you see a car crash, you gotta watch it.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things when it pulls up on your feed, you see a car driving, and you're like, oh, is it gonna get in a wreck? Is it gonna, that's the part that's while you're driving, you're taking your eyes. But usually in those traffic situations, you're not leaving the same amount of gap. And if, say, like there's a piece of trash or something from the accident on the road, you're not going to see that. You're going to run over that and possibly damage your car and add to the existing lineup of cars. Or you could be pulled over with them and you could smash into the back of somebody.
That's what I was about to say. How many times have we seen one accident cause multiple other accidents because people aren't paying attention and, slow speed, whatever it may be. But very often does a collision cause other collisions as well, and just to watch that is just definitely a head scratcher. The other one that really gets me too is distracted driving. I mean, how much are we dealing with that nowadays, right?
Yeah, I mean the DMV and the national reporting, it says that 5% of all fatal accidents are caused by distracted driving. That's 5%. Like if you think about how many fatalities there are on the road, which there's a lot, 5% of it could be someone distracted by messing with the radio or happen to look at their phone and and then life's over.
Yeah. Now the last accident I had, which was many years ago at this point. Was just this was pre-cell phone and so old. But it was a gallon bottle of water with the pop-on lid, not a screw, sitting on the floorboard of the passenger side, and I went through a churn. And as I went through the churn, the bottle just fell over, and I just looked over, grabbed the bottle, stood it back up, and as I looked back up, the truck right in front of me as we went through the churn had stopped to turn into the first driveway, and I just hit him. I mean, I was only going not 10 miles an hour, but it ended up totaling. I was driving a little Toyota MR2 at the time. Totaled my car, messed up the bumper of the truck that I ran into significantly enough, and obviously totally my fault. And I felt like a complete idiot. I mean, it's that easy. And thank God it was a truck and not a little kid who bolted out in front of me, or a bicyclist, or anything else like that, which I could have hit, which would have been tragic.
Yeah, and it's really scary how fast things can change.
Yeah.
And that's why, like during the lessons as an instructor with the Go Green, we've always taught like the scanning ahead.
Yep.
And when you distract yourself, that removes that scanning ability.
Completely.
Like if you're looking 10, 15 seconds ahead and you cut out 2 or 3 seconds of that,
yep, that's
2 or 3 seconds you're not getting back.
Yep.
Yeah. And that could be, like the kid running across the street. That could be the ball bouncing on the side of the walk that you see. So it's really important that we try to keep our eyes focused on the road, and we get comfortable as regular drivers,
experienced drivers.
Yeah, like, oh, I could look down, I could move the radio.
Sure.
Wait till the red light.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we posted that video the other day of our instructor with the student. They were practicing backing up in a straight line next to the curb, and then they pulled away from the curb. And I love hearing the video because the instructor was just right on point, giving perfect directions. The student was doing everything that they were supposed to be doing, and just as they begin to pull away from the curb, a car turning left, not paying attention, distracted. I'm not sure what they were distracted by. My guess is they were distracted by some pedestrians that were way off to the side. But they came around that corner, must not have looked forward at all, because there we were. First of all, they came onto the wrong side of the road, weren't looking for, a good amount of distance and just head on right into our student. Luckily, everybody was okay and walked away from the collision. But again, that could have been, just a couple of seconds of distractedness could have been a life. Crazy.
Yeah, the cars actually got stuck together.
Yeah.
They were hit so hard.
Our car was totaled.
Yeah, and our car was totaled, and I just want to thank the instructor again, because he was on the horn a full second and completely had stopped the vehicle.
Completely. And the student as well. Their reaction was, the doctor was, in the room and giving them good guidance, and the student responded, the instructor responded. I mean, it was perfect, and kudos to both of them. But man, what a scary situation.
Yeah, it's something that it's unavoidable on the road as a driving instructor. You want to say we're never going to get in an accident.
Sure.
But if it has to happen, I would like them all to be low speed.
Right.
And all to be handled as exemplary as our instructor handled that.
Yeah, no, we couldn't have asked for anything more on that, but brings us back to the distracted driving. I mean, there's, obviously everyone has a cell phone nowadays, here in California, here in the Bay Area. I mean, we both have ours, right, readily available. And that's an obvious distraction, and you see the gaps people leave. They're just full on texting, leaving a 4 or 5 car gap, for safety, and we get frustrated as drivers with that stuff. But what I want people to remember is it doesn't have to be like that, like a physical distraction. You could just have a thought, and you just kind of just drift off in thought, and that alone, and you're not focused, like what you're saying. If you're not paying attention and you lose a couple of seconds of focus going into a churn or approaching a situation that, all of a sudden things get a little wonky, could be incredibly dangerous, and literally just a thought, and so I know that when we have our driving lessons, we don't we don't play music in the car. We keep it all, because your favorite song will certainly distract you. All of a sudden, I've had students, before ask about playing music, and I've even tried it, way when I first started, and almost every single time, they obviously you're going to put on some music that you like, and then they're singing and grooving, and pretty soon your thought and your focus goes somewhere else, and just that little of a distraction could be deadly.
Yeah. And it's not just the distracted driving, because that's the final factor, is being distracted while driving.
Yeah.
But it's what that causes down the chain of events.
Yes.
Because say like you're having that thought, you're thinking about a fight you and your parents got into or something like that, and you're mad and you're like, oh man, I'm coming up on my exit. Oh, I missed. I got to get over real quick.
Right.
And then you cut in front. And then maybe you don't get in a wreck. Maybe you're fine.
Right.
But you make the car slam on the brakes behind you.
Yep.
And the car behind him isn't prepared for it, and they hit him.
Yep.
And then that person's in an accident. And even though like we can't accredit that to distracted driving,
right?
That's
yes,
yeah, that's
totally right. Yeah.
That's a huge thing that happens that people really don't notice is like the last minute decisions.
Yes.
Because you're thinking of something else, you're distracted, you haven't made your plan ahead of time before you start driving.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we call it the anticipatory driving, right? You're anticipating what's going on due to construction, due to, a double park delivery truck, whatever it is. That's a safety mechanism, and that safety mechanism is entirely eliminated when you're distracted.
Yeah, and anything can be a distraction, like you said.
It's true. It's true. All right. Well, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about some local driving news and some effects on traffic in the area.
Yeah. Cache Valley News, thank you and our instructor, Dr. Les.
Both
of them.
Shout out to both you guys.
Reported that the indoor portion of Bayfair Mall is going to be closed permanently.
Permanently, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. Growing up, I would walk over to the Bayfair Mall with my great grandmother, and we go to KB Toys, and it was a weekly event. I was a spoiled little kid.
Yeah.
But but it's gonna be hard to see that part of it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of nostalgia in the mall. I remember, although I didn't play there much as a kid, I used to take my kids there, and they had like a little, kind of little play area where the kids would just, this is probably when they're, 3 to 5, little toddler zone, and they loved it. And we would go there at least once a week, once every couple of weeks, and they loved the Bayfair Mall. I mean, that's definitely, man, that closing is a big deal.
Yeah, and with Macy's pulling out, like there's not much support for that mall other than that Target, which is still kind of a busy area. But traffic-wise, that whole Hesperian East 14th corridor is on a downswing, and you see the empty buildings, you see.
It's sad.
Yeah, and like if you look in that Lucky's right over there, all that whole strip mall is empty.
Yeah, no, it's empty, man, and really, I mean, it's kind of indicative of what's happening, nationwide. Malls are just, they're just dying out. It's the sort of the end of the mall era, right? And for those of us who grew up in the mall era, it was a lot of fun and so many memories and all that stuff. But things change. Online shopping. I mean, it's there's a lot of different things going on, and it's going to be very interesting to see them revitalize that area, and how are they going to utilize that mall space, right? I mean, that's just a ton of square footage. I mean, we read that article that was talking about like some R&D, maybe up to a third of the mall being used for R&D. That sounds good. That sounds positive, right?
Yeah, hopefully it brings boots on the ground. Like we need butts and seats, and like there's a lot of things that happen when jobs pull out. There's ancillary jobs. Like say a company moves in and they bring in 1,000 jobs. That's 5,000 other jobs that it brings to create, that support all those people. So, like Macy's, couple hundred employees, and all the little, places in the mall, that's close to 1,000 people. So, like San Lorenzo isn't a huge area, it's kind of rough.
It's a big effect. It's
a
huge effect. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, it's with the times, it's definitely needs to be, reinvigorated and renewed and kind of, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, because at the same time, while you have the mall and that sort of that whole Hesperian, you know, area just sort of, you know, kind of fading away, we have, you know, further into Hayward, you have, you know, they're invigorating the area with Canes, Harder and Mission,
Yep.
right? They're bringing in a Raising Canes,
where
the old Kmart was. And so that, again, that's a dinosaur that kind of faded out, Kmart, right? I mean, we all grew up with that as like the place. I mean, for me, it was like, you know, I loved going to Kmart. They had everything.
Yeah. Clothes, groceries, electronics. You know, it was the Walmart before Walmart.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and you know, with that area being, you know, like they're also putting a Sprouts in there, and then it's going to be a whole little strip mall of other businesses, probably, you know, T-Mobile or, you know, like some cell phone, something.
Subway will probably pop in.
Yes, of course. I gotta shout out Subway.
Yeah.
But you know, like that, it just shows that area is growing, and you can see it on Mission.
Yeah.
There's condos under construction, houses under construction.
Yeah.
Everything is growing out that way.
Yeah, that area is certainly thriving, and it's also, you know, needs some infrastructure lift, right? If we're being honest, Mission gets pretty crowded. I mean, and there's no freeway access to that whole area, right? And I'm not sure how you resolve that problem, but definitely I feel like we need another sort of main vein that gets us, you know, deeper into that area as opposed to having to go down Mission from, you know, 580 or whatever, 880.
Yeah,
way.
With the debacle that is the 92 in the morning.
Oh, man.
And then also Tennyson, you know, like there's a BART station over there, and then Harder takes you back to the 92.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be, you know, like I can foresee a lot of traffic issues. I don't know how we solve that, because Mission's only a two-way, you know, for most of the way. You know, like it's 2 lanes on each side. I mean, you got a couple 100,000 people going up and down that every day.
Yeah, that's a problem that's going to need to be addressed. I mean, you know, from the Go Green Driving School perspective, that is sort of the limiting factor of our area of service. We just cannot get out there and back in a you know, efficient time.
Yeah, a reasonable time.
Yeah,
if it takes 40 minutes to get from here to Union City on Mission or the freeway, I mean, that's
just not
it's not possible.
Yeah.
And I know all those people that have to drive that every day. I salute you guys, because
yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because you know, you think you can see where you're going,
right?
And it's just
not going very fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
it's true. It's true.
Yep.
Well, I do want to address. We want to make sure that we get to some of the questions that kind of come our way. And Mike, I'm hoping that you can clarify this one for us. There are a lot of questions around the provisional driver's license. So maybe you can sort of explain to us what the provisional license is and what are the restrictions associated with it.
Okay, absolutely. So the once someone who's under the age of 18 gets their license, they pass their driving test and everything, until they've held that license for a year or until the date they turn 18.
Whichever comes first.
Yeah, whichever comes first. They are a provisional licensed driver.
Okay.
Which I have it pulled up on the DMV just so we have 100% accurate information. During the first 12 months, a minor cannot drive between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Transport passengers under the age of 20, unless accompanied by a parent or guardian. California driver 25 years old or older, or a certified driving instructor.
Okay.
Yep. And then now there are a couple exceptions to that rule. If you know, like we have, these are things that you would have to have in the car with you.
I refer to this as a gray area because this is pretty misunderstood. And even though you and I have just kind of read over it and you have it pulled up there, it's.
Yeah, it's still...
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what it says.
Yeah, okay, so it says there's a few exceptions to that rule of driving, you know, extra people or between those certain hours.
Yes.
And So the first one would be medical necessity.
Yes.
And a note must be signed by the physician and include a diagnosis and probable date of recovery.
So this is typically if a parent has some kind of medical issue, and the only other way for that parent to be transported to the hospital is for that provisional driver to be able to take them in an extreme circumstance between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. Right? Because if the parent's in the car and they're licensed, they can drive, so they're not typically a passenger. So this would be in during those extreme hours.
Yeah, extreme hours, or say you have to take your brother to his,
right.
Say he's got a broken leg or something like that.
Mom and dad are at work, or whatever the case is.
Like it's after school, he has to go for his checkup. It would have to be signed by the doctor.
By the doctor.
Yeah. And then there's another exception. It would be for school or school authorized activities.
Yes. So a game, a band practice, something like that after school would also be acceptable.
Yeah, for that, or like coming home from a football game.
Right.
Some of those games, end pretty late, and like if you're playing in the game, you got to dress down after, you got to shower, you got to,
all that
you're not getting out of there till 10:30, 11. You might be driving during those hours, so you would have to have that signed by the principal, dean, and include the reason for the school or school authorized activity and when that end date would be.
Yeah, and this one, that's the one that comes up a lot, right? Typically, parents are busy. Now they have a driving sibling who has maybe 2 younger siblings, and they want them to be able to drive those siblings, right? So with permission appropriately, they are able to drive those siblings to and from school. Right,
yep.
So it becomes question: can they also then take that sibling over to a friend's house? Which now,
now you're in that gray area.
You're stepping out of the area, right? It's not technically a school activity. So the key is to this, and I believe, parents, when parents ask me this, my typical answer is to tell them, if your student who's driving is, in the car, there's backpacks, the kids aren't up to anything bad, and maybe he didn't come to a complete stop at a stop sign, they get pulled over and the cop starts asking questions, and, it looks like a pretty normal situation, they're probably not going to enforce the rule. They very well may check the permission slip, so you definitely want to have that on hand. But it's when the situation's a little bit different, and it's not younger siblings, it's 3 friends.
Yeah, it's 3.
And one of those friends is hanging out the window, throwing water balloons like my friends used to do. Doing something goofy. And now the police officer pulls you over, and then maybe one of your friends starts smarting off to the cop. What do you pull us over for, you jerk, and all this. Now the officer's going to look for every possible reason.
Yeah.
Oh, and you don't have your license for a year? Woo! And what could happen then is that person's driving privilege is revoked.
Yep.
Right? So that, it could go from almost nothing to very serious very quickly.
Absolutely.
So this is what I try to explain to parents. It's kind of, your kids have to understand the severity of what's associated with it, but realistically, as long as they're doing the right thing, they're probably not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Is that fair? I guess
that's what I always say is they're not going to pull you over for looking too young to drive with people in the car.
Correct.
They're going to pull you over for making the mistake.
Yes.
And if you have somebody in the car that you're not supposed to have to,
that's
going to town. So you don't want to be any part of that.
Right.
Now another thing that is an exception, which is very confusing, is the employment necessity.
Talk to me.
So like say you're working at Taco Bell or something, and you get off, like your shift ends at 11. And you're 16, 17, you haven't had your license for a year, you have to have a note signed for, by the employer and your parents, saying that it's okay for you to drive between those hours to and from work and when that would end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's important to have the note. But another important part of this is you cannot drive for a company.
Right. So you can't deliver pizza. You can't, right?
Yeah, you couldn't, like if Taco Bell had a delivery service or something like that, you could never,
under 18,
drive for that company. They can't make you do it, and it's actually illegal because their insurance would not cover it, your insurance would not cover it.
Yep.
So if you're working for somebody and they ask you to drive and you're under 18, please deny them.
Yeah.
And cite this rule, cite me.
Yeah,
I'll come down there and tell them myself.
That's right. Send the video.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Are there any other exceptions or activities that we need to address?
We kind of touched on the last one, which would be the immediate need of a family member.
Right.
So that's like, like mom and dad are at work, and I have to take a little Jimmy to to his doctor appointment or his therapy or his tutor or something like that. But if it's going to be, me and little Jimmy, we're going to go down to 7-Eleven and get some Arizona,
Right, a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be looked at differently, and that note that would have to be signed by the parents with an end date.
With an end date.
And for the reason why you're driving.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to include.
Not going to include the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing, again, I just want to kind of retouch on this, Mike, and you went over it. The no passenger rules are passengers under 21, right? So if anybody under 21, but if the passenger's 21 or over, then they can be in the car, which is kind of a weird thing because your 16, 17-year-old can have their 21-year-old friend in the car, right? But, or the next cutoff is if they're 25, a licensed 25 or older passenger in the front passenger seat, it specifies, then that sort of overrides the whole provisional part of it, and then that 25-year-old allows for other younger passengers, assuming the 25-year-old then becomes the responsible party. Is that right?
A perfect example of that is, say you guys are you're going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
We live in the Bay Area.
Sure.
Disneyland is about, a 6-7 hour drive.
Yes.
Most people like to leave late at night or early in the morning.
Yep,
to avoid the traffic of the 5 and all that stuff. So, you would think, oh no, I can't drive between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. I have a provisional. No. You have your parent or your guardian, or say it's your older brother who's 25.
Yes.
You guys can switch off.
Yes.
You could drive during those hours because he's in that front seat with you, and your parents could sleep in the back.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's totally overridden by the presence of that 25.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Excellent. So hopefully that answers all those questions and clarifies all the issues around your provisional license.
Yep. And we hope to see some more questions out on the comments. Or, when we get through the phone, so feel free to give us a call.
We love the questions.
Yeah, the number's right here. It's the 510-432-8873.
That's right. So remember, go safe.
And go green.